Start this morning with the plans for the future. We have Kyle Burton from Nova Scotia, Tom Clark from the Prince Edward Island Industry Association, Dave Thorburn from Atlantic Lotto, and Ken Oakes from the Prince Edward Island Department of Agriculture. They're going to talk about some plans for the future, and we'll start with Tom Clark with the PEI Harness Racing Industry Association.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much, Jeff. It's a pleasure. We've had a great weekend here, everyone, this weekend, and I sense an optimism and a clarity amongst all the presenters here this weekend, and it's, as I said, it's an honor to be asked to give you a bit of an overview from the PEI Harness Racing Industry Association's perspective. I appreciate that some of you have already seen this presentation, and we'll ask for your patience while we roll through it again. This is an overview of a recently completed study that we did on Prince Edward Island by a consulting firm called MRSB, who has previous experience in the harness racing sector. And it was originally put together in order for us to be able to identify areas in which not only Prince Edward Island, but the Atlantic region can take advantage of growth, and most importantly, try to identify areas in which we can create more revenue. And I'll be able to give you a bit of an overview here with our slideshow. The title of our study was called PEI Harness Racing Sector, Working Together, Capitalizing on Opportunities for Growth. So the project overview was to develop a growth strategy to improve existing opportunities and create new opportunities for PEI's harness racing sector. Also to determine the economic impact of PEI's harness racing sector on our provincial economy. In 2010, Prince Edward Island had 740 active members in Standardbrook Canada, the official registry and record-keeping and standard-setting body for Canadian harness racing. 39% of the Atlantic Canadian active members in Standardbrook Canada are Prince Edward Island residents. 48% of the registered Atlantic Canadian breeders are island-based. As you'll note on the screen here, Prince Edward Island has 740 active members in Standardbrook Canada. The Atlantic region, more importantly, has 1,893 members, and that is the second largest body within Standardbrook Canada at this time, second only to Ontario. Some trends that we've noticed in Prince Edward Island. In 2009, PEI led Canada in Standardbrook Canada membership growth on a percentage basis. Better breeding, nutrition, and management has improved the quality of PEI bred horses. However, production costs still continue to increase at a faster pace than sale prices. 4 of our 5 matinee tracks have invested significantly in new racing surfaces and new infrastructure, new buildings, and across Prince Edward Island right now, we are enjoying a near full capacity on all our various matinee and training facilities. The number of owners has increased, and the number of racehorses continue to increase on Prince Edward Island. The number of mares bred, owned by PEI residents, increased by 25% from 2003 to 2009. Overall, PEI's total wager was down slightly by just under 1%, but the live wager has actually increased by approximately 1.9%. Now, Atlantic Canadian trends. We appreciate through this project that we talk a lot, obviously, about Prince Edward Island, but obviously as well, direct parallels can be drawn towards all our Atlantic Canadian partners in the Atlantic industry. And some of these slides here, this particular slide will highlight that. Standardbrook Canada memberships from the Atlantic Canadian region grew by 16% between 2006, which showed 1,687 members, and 2009, which showed 1,959 members, with a 6.9% growth in owners. Here's a big number here, 48% increase in the number of mares bred in Atlantic Canada from 2000 to 2007. From 2007 to 2009, race dates increased from 277 to 298, which was a 7.6% increase, with dashes increasing by 10.7%. That's a very, I think, significant trend as well, because if we look across the country, and perhaps even broader than that across North America, there's not many jurisdictions that are enjoying increases in the number of race dates. Purses on an Atlantic Canadian basis increased by 13.7% from $4.96 million in 2005 to $5.64 million in 2009. Total wager in 2008 in the Atlantic region was $26.6 million. Excuse me. Towards the bottom you'll see, broken out between all the 4 Atlantic provinces, as mentioned already, we had $5.1 million in purses paid, and you can see the Standardbred Canada memberships broken down by region, and we still continue to enjoy a very strong membership in Standardbred Canada amongst the 4 Atlantic provinces. Canadian trends. Overall wager across the country is declining, some of it due to the close of the Quebec industry, of course, or the significantly reduced Quebec offering, and reduced race dates. Racetracks becoming even more reliant on the gaming aspect. Offshore gambling has certainly become a major competitor. Some of the United States trends that we have noticed showing growth in the harness racing sector where the slots are in place with overall increased purses. And I'll cover this a little bit more in a slide or two. They experience competition from offshore gambling the same as we do, resulting in a decline in their wager. Here's an important number we drew as well. 33% reduction in foals registered in the United States over the last 6 years, from 15,429 down to 10,290. We feel as an Atlantic region, folks, this is a real opportunity for us. I think going forward there will continue to be a strong market for quality racehorses, and I think we're well positioned here in Atlantic Canada to provide that product. Also on our report, we had an opportunity to give ourselves a bit of a report card since the last 5 years ago when we last looked at our economic impact of harness racing on our economy in Prince Edward Island. Average direct operating expenditures over the past 3 years in Prince Edward Island of $36.5 million generated total sales for PEI businesses of approximately $81.6 million. We supported an estimated 750 jobs on Prince Edward Island, created an estimated $2.2 million in provincial government tax revenues and $3.7 million in federal and municipal tax revenues. And we impacted the gross domestic product by an estimated $31.1 million on Prince Edward Island. Economic impact of the sector. Direct capital investments over the past 5 years of $36.7 million generated a positive economic impact of $66.4 million in total sales. During that time, we supported an estimated 519 jobs, created an estimated $2.5 million in provincial government tax revenues and $4.1 million in federal and municipal tax revenues. We impacted gross domestic product an estimated $27.4 million. At the bottom of this screen, folks, you'll see, based on the net economic impact or gross domestic product, the total contribution to the Prince Edward Island economy for every dollar that our provincial government funds to the harness racing sector, we return on an annual basis $10. These numbers were pulled and derived by an independent firm outside of MRSB, and it gives us all a bit of an idea how really important we are, and this number should not be lost on any of us when we speak with our various provincial politicians. It's very important that they know that this is the type of churn and spin effect that we as an industry create. Now, we've identified 8 key areas for growth strategies from this particular report that we've began to establish working committees that over the course of the next months we'll start to bring together a strategy and a plan which will push us forward for the next few years. Most importantly, we'd like to have an overall goal, of course, of increasing revenues. We'd like to export our signal to international markets. As Brett made mention yesterday in his report, we will be moving forward on Prince Edward Island from our Red Shores facility with 110 dates that will be utilized on the HPI network. We'll be sending our signal out on that particular, and it's our intention as well to explore other markets besides perhaps the HPI platform. Establish new and strengthen existing partnerships with island communities and charitable organizations. Increase our already significant working relationship with the Atlantic Lotteries Corporation, other Atlantic provinces, the Atlantic Veterinary College, Tourism PEI, and the state of Maine. Develop new products and incorporate new technologies to expand our wagering base. Further develop the breeding industry and export horses to states like Maine, New York, and Pennsylvania, where purse pools, I'd like to note, have increased from $75 million in 2005 to over $234 million in 2010. Folks, the model that we have in Prince Edward Island and the model that we can see in other jurisdictions really does work. This is some statistics from the HLT advisory study, just to give folks a bit of an idea that although we've provided you numbers from Prince Edward Island and we've looked at some American numbers, here's some numbers from Ontario that are of significant interest. Since the inception of slots at racetrack program, horse breeding and racing is now the second largest sector of the Ontario agricultural industry, surpassed only by dairy. That's a huge significance and importance in an economy the size of Ontario's. Number of direct, indirect, and induced jobs has increased from 10,997 to 24,569 in 2006, an increase of 125%. I'd like to just give you a bit of an overview quickly before I leave you, because I did mention that there's 8 different significant aspects of our report that we categorized these particular areas that we are going to work on over the next year or two. But 4 of them, most particularly, we've begun work on already, and through the Industry Association, we've established working committees that will report back to the industry their findings. And the 4 areas that we've identified that we'll get underway with right away is an expansion of the PEI standardbred breeding sector. I'm talking all about Prince Edward Island, and I do that with a lot of pride. However, anything that I have mentioned so far would have exactly the same type of influence or ability to be able to be utilized in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, or Newfoundland and Labrador. So expansion of the PEI standardbred breeding sector. The goal is to continue to increase the economic contribution to the agricultural sector of the PEI standardbred breeding sector by increased yearling sale revenues through increased demand for PEI foaled horses. A bit of a detailed strategy, as I've already mentioned, a breeders' working committee will be established, conduct market research to identify key market opportunities, the development of incentives for quality production, and a new breeders' education component. probably working in conjunction with folks like the Atlantic Veterinary College. They've shown a great deal of interest in helping us to develop a better quality athlete, a better quality horse, and for better resale. Second committee, explore opportunities to export our signal. Some of our action items there will be a preliminary market research, possible trade mission to potential key market areas, and a feasibility analysis on development of a new distribution system. Third segment is develop partnership opportunities with Atlantic Lottery. Now, we already have a wonderful partnership with Atlantic Lottery. We appreciate and respect that. But both sides of the table, both the folks at Red Shores and ALC and our PEI Harness Racing Industry Association realize that we can even identify further areas of strength that we feel that we're just beginning to scratch the surface with what we can accomplish together. And finally, fourth area or committee is to enhance our relationship with the Atlantic Veterinary College. An industry-wide research committee will be established whose mandate will include identifying research priorities for the entire horse sector, prioritizing current research, and identifying additional services that the AVC could provide to the horse industry in Atlantic Canada. Thank you very much, folks, for the opportunity to speak to you today.
Thank you very much, Tom. Great study, lots of great information. It's just, the numbers are very, very large when you start looking at our industry and what it gives back to the economy and how many jobs it supports, and it's wonderful to have a report like that to bank on going forward. Next, we'll have Kyle Burton from Nova Scotia come up and speak on new ideas on promoting our sport.
Good morning, everyone. Glad to see everybody here. To start off with a raise of hands, I'm going to see the age of everybody here today. So if you don't mind, anybody above 50, could you please raise your hands? Anybody 40 to 50, please raise your hands. 30 to 50, 20 to 30, please raise your hands.
20 to 30?
Yeah.
We missed 30 to...
30 to 40, anybody raises their hands. And then anybody 20 to 30 or under 20. So it's obvious that we lack a lot of interest, at least on the industry side, of younger people to get involved in harness racing, and I've come up with a few plans and ideas to help get younger people to the races. So starting off, like, there's different, like, an atmosphere that people like, exciting events, and last year in Truro we had a horse versus man race that we teamed up with a local high school with, and the runner was actually the star, track and field star of the high school. So we had about 200 or 300 kids come out from the high school, cheer them on, and we introduced them how to bet and show them, help them better understand the racing, why they go around the way they do, why they go on the post parade and things like that. And I think if you start at a younger age with people, with young kids, then maybe somewhere down the road they'll start betting on horse racing too. Maybe not now because they're not legally allowed to, but maybe someday they will. So there's some things coming up maybe in a little bit I can't talk about today, but about getting younger people to the track. So some things we could do, like supplying wireless internet at the racetracks. I don't know if, I know Charlottetown does, right? I think so. And everybody carries around a cell phone, things like that. So we could have specialty products at the track, like Kelly does at Grand River, the Bouncy Pony Stakes, which Jeff really likes. So, and interactive on-site games. There's a program in the States by HHYF, and they bring out a horse at Goshen there in New York, and they paint the horse, they paint their hand, and the children get to leave their handprints on the horse. So everybody gets up and close with the animals, and it's just another connection that we could use, because I think every kid loves a horse. So, and access to the horses. Have the double-seated jog cart out on race days. It's pretty easy to do. So things like that to attract younger people. And I think, like the Kai-M-I-M story, that if you had a bunch of, say, teenagers and things like that, it's cheap for them to get in to the business, and more things on getting younger people to the races would be great. So thank you very much, and I'd like to thank Harness Racing New Brunswick for putting on a great show. So thank you.
Thank you, Kyle, and it's great to see the younger generation taking a leadership stance and taking changing the thought process and getting new ideas on the table. And sometimes we get away from the new generation and the trends, so it's great that you're doing what you're doing. Next, we're going to have Dave Thorburn from Atlantic Lottery come up and speak on the marketplace and gaming in the Red Shores and in Charlottetown and Summerside.
Thanks, Jeff. Good morning, everyone. Basically, what I'm going to touch on is the model that I think of is going to be the future for harness racing. And obviously, Tom's touched on it a little bit, is partnerships. You have to build some great partnerships to keep this business sustainable for the future and let it grow. And I'm going to give you a few stats of trends to show how the business model on PEI and at Red Shores is working compared to Standard Bred Canada right across Canada. For example, on average, as probably many of you know, since 2000, on average, Standard Bred Canada bet has declined on average year over year up through 2010 by just a little over 6%. When you look at PEI, on average, since we built our tracks, our new facilities in 2005 and then 2009, our overall average decline has been just a little under 4%. But we're at the same time, 2010 over 2009, Standard Bred Canada has declined about 5%, where Red Shores operations has seen an increase of just under 1%, but still it's on an upward trend. So it shows that the business model that we're trying to develop on PEI, with the great working relationship with Atlantic Lottery, the government of PEI, and harness racing PEI, it shows that that business model is kind of bucking the trend of what's going on across Canada. You know, when you look at the stats, 2010 over 2000, the year 2000, yeah, there was a little bit of increase, good increases for 2 or 3 years from 2000, 2002, because of all the, excuse me, all the increases with the tracks in Ontario. The wagers went up, right? We seen a big increase on the island too when we first built our new facilities. The wages went up, right? So that shows that we need to spend a little bit of capital money. We need to invest it in that line of business and develop our properties so that we see, make them comfortable, make them new. You know, there's a lot of demand out there for that disposable income, a lot of competition. And if we want a piece of that competition, we have to invest in that. Overall, Standard Bred Canada, which is huge numbers, 2010 over 2005 has seen a decline in wager of 67%. When you look at on the island, right, it's just under 4% for that same period. So that shows that we're bucking that trend, and the reason being, I'm going to touch on that here in a second. One, full partnership. You know, we've combined harness racing, gaming, dining operations, fully integrated. And when I say that, I mean we share marketing and promotions campaigns and calendars. We develop those together. So in other words, we sit down, we work together, We're not spending harness racing, it's not spending money on advertisement, and then the slot operations isn't spending money on advertising as well. They're together, we got one ad, sharing the same type of information, promoting one another all at the same time. So when we talk about opportunity to drive revenue, we're also talking about efficiencies in saving costs as well. Because as you know, it's not all about driving revenue, it's about trying to save some money as well. We share resources, right? There's a lot of expertise that doesn't cost anymore just by running things by, right? So we're sharing resources without actually adding any cost. We share facility. So harness racing PEI does not have to go out and lease space and pay for heat and pay for rent and pay for phones and insurance and all that extra stuff, right? It's now all combined under one facility. Another thing that we also done to help drive and help introduce potentially new players to the harness racing industry is we put betting stations and monitors and stuff on our game floors in our casinos. So anybody that is interested or even not interested but sees those live telecasts that's going on and those simulcast telecasts going on, if they're interested, they can bet right there on the game floor. They don't have to go anywhere else. It's all there. They win, they can cash that ticket out on the game floor. It's one of the, in Atlantic Canada, it's a very unique offer that we have. You got harness racing again, you got gaming, you got poker, you got slots, you got lottery tickets, and you got dining. So again, that disposable income is very important because we've got a lot of competition. There's movies, there's other restaurants, there's all kinds of entertainment that people can choose from. So we've got to make it inviting enough that, okay, maybe me and my wife had different interests. We want to go out and eat together. That's fine. I may like to gamble on the horses. She may like to go play slots. We can do that together now, right? Great selling features. Group packages, bus tours, dinner packages, convention groups. We're connected to the Trade Center and the Civic Center on the island, in both places in Charlottetown and in Summerside. We can put together banquets, combined cross-promotional offers. This is one thing that I've really seen has really benefited the operation as a whole. I have experience in Ontario where I used to work for Ontario Lottery Game Corporation at some of the tracks up there. And one of the things I noticed that they didn't do a whole lot of up there is doing the cross promotions between the slots and harness racing. One of the things we ensure that happens at Red Shores is that any promotions that go on, everything's connected. So you get a chance to get a ballot on the gaming floor, you got that same chance if you go and place a wager in simulcast or live races, right? Live racing impacts on the gaming industry as a whole for us. We definitely see an increase on our play on the gaming floor and on our poker tables, anywhere from 15 to 25%, depending on the day of the live race, and depending on the weather, of course, right? But we definitely see an increase in drive in our play on the gaming side. In our food and beverage operations, the revenues from that double during live race nights. Patron counts, for the most part, increase anywhere from 20 to 65% during live races. Old Home Week and Lobster Carnival Week, those weeks there are the most profitable for all lines of business at Red Shores, both in Summerside and both in Charlottetown. Bar none, those are our most profitable. So that shows the combination of harness racing and our dining and our gaming all work together. It's a huge benefit. People come, they got a variety of opportunities and options to choose from, and it's by far the most profitable time for all lines of business for Red Shores. During those periods, our daily patron counts increased by 85% during a normal day in July and August. Our net revenues increased by 55% during those regular days, over our regular days in July and August. Some of the efficiencies that we also see by combining and integrating those operations is we're not running separate advertisements and awareness campaigns. I remember when we first opened up Charlottetown, we did have two separate organizations. Harness Racing PEI put their ads out in the Guardian, and wouldn't you know, 2 or 3 pages in that same Guardian was Red Shores or Charlottetown Driving Park ad at that time. Same business, same line of business, but we're spending twice the amount of money. That no longer happens, right? We're not running separate promotions. They're all, again, all combined. So again, there's these efficiencies in operations that we're seeing. We reduced operational costs. There's no more building or lease or rent costs that Harness Racing PEI pays, because now they're all integrated under one roof in one building. No additional power costs, no additional heating costs, no additional insurance costs, reduced labor, again, because we have those shared resources that we can now work with, right? Available resource and knowledge and experience. We got internal resource support and help available. Anything that's going on technical, you know, you got all this online stuff that we need to kind of be looking at. We now have internal resources that we can kind of depend on within Atlantic Lottery. Buying power and knowledge for best pricing. Being a big corporation that we are, we do have some buying power that, you know, you may not otherwise have. Available world-class technology. We talk about V75 and the success of that over in Sweden. Here's an opportunity, potentially somewhere down the road, that we may be able to partner up with Harness Racing in Atlantic Canada and maybe incorporate that throughout all the maritime provinces. If you want to increase your bet, we need to get out into the communities that you know, with very little capital investment. We already got lottery terminals out there. It's just a matter of kind of putting some software and some technology in place that we can get out there and start making those bets, right? And global contacts. Again, Atlantic Lottery has a lot of global contacts. Partnerships with a huge corporation, with all the contacts they got globally, could be very beneficial for the harness racing industry. Again, some of the things I really see that have to happen is we have to build partnerships, and not only with the lotteries, but also between provinces, right? You know, there is a great partnership between, you know, the Atlantic Canada provinces, but we also got to partner up with Ontario, Quebec, and right across Canada, and start working together and see how we can all benefit one another. This is a business that is unique, because when I say unique, it's, we all kind of feed one another, as you know, right? There's races going on in Ontario, we bet on them here, right? There's races going on here, they bet on them in Ontario. So without feeding one another and working together, we need to do that. That's going to benefit everybody as a whole. But I see the business model that has been developed on PEI at Red Shores obviously is bucking the trend that's going on across Canada. That should open up everybody's eyes and just say, okay, we need to kind of look at that business model, see how we can adapt to that, see what else we can do as well to make things more beneficial for the harness racing industry as a whole. We got to work together. If we work together, I think everybody's going to benefit, and you're going to see this business not only sustain itself, but you're going to see some growth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave. Very interesting, and I know the changes we've witnessed on Prince Edward Island, where you are now from where you started. You know, it seems like everything is just working so smoothly, and the partnerships, the support we get from the island is critical to our operations across the region. So, looking forward to seeing more growth and partnerships in the future. Next, Ken Oakes from Prince Edward Island Department of Agriculture will speak on plans from the government's point of view.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you. First of all, I'm going to apologize for my voice. I am battling a cold, and I apologize if my voice sounds a little raspy. A couple of things off the get-go. One, certainly want to congratulate Jeff and all the team at HRNB for putting this symposium together. We've had some excellent presentations over the last 3 days, and it's great to get together and discuss common issues and common objectives, because certainly this is a Atlantic business, and we have to approach it as such. Also want to just mention, next weekend, Friday and Saturday, we have PEI Horse Industry Symposium. I think there was a number of brochures that were distributed around. We've got some more if you haven't. We've got George Teague coming in as our guest speaker both for the symposium and for the PEI Standardbred Horse Owners Awards Dinner. Mr. Teague will be speaking on Friday evening at the symposium and on Saturday evening at the awards dinner. We're also very pleased to have Gilles Berriot from this province of New Brunswick coming over to participate in a panel about with people who have competed on a national and an international stage, and certainly we're all very proud of Gilles' representation of this region and of Canada at the World Driving Championships in Australia and New Zealand. Today I'm going to go through a few slides, two of which you've seen before in previous presentations, but I'm just going to perhaps accentuate a little different points than what was brought up before, so bear with me when you see those. We have a regional business with tracks in all 4 Atlantic provinces. I love that slide, the way the little horses slide in there. That's why I use that. We have a tremendous opportunity for growth, I think, all across Atlantic Canada. And that's where we have to get our mind to, is looking at the top of the hill of where we can go with Atlantic Canada. And we have very successful, localized tracks in their areas. Challenges in them all, for sure. But there's a lot of things that each place does well that we can learn from one another. And by working together, we sincerely feel from Prince Edward Island that we can grow harness racing right across Atlantic Canada. When we look at Standardbred Canada memberships, there's 2 things I want to impart upon you. These are the Standardbred Canada membership numbers from 2002 to 2010. Atlantic Canada is the 2nd largest membership base in Standardbred Canada. It is also the 2nd largest contributor from an economic point of view to Standardbred Canada. So we have a very strong rightful place on a national harness racing body, which Standardbred Canada is. It's a good organization, and we're certainly very proud to work within that. But when we look at what is the trends that have happened, I see a slight decline in membership growth in Ontario, and it is a challenge in that area for sure, but they've got a tremendous population. And when we look at Quebec, unfortunately, we've had some declines these aren't membership, these are race dates overall. And we've had a decline in Quebec in race dates, and we certainly would like to see that rebound. Quebec was a strong market for a long period of time for Atlantic Canadian horses, and we'd like to see that rebound. In Atlantic Canada, we have actually grown, and on the west, we've had a slight decline. So again, these are the race date numbers over an 8-year period. But race date are certainly a strong predictor of the health of the industry, and we're fortunate that we've been able to maintain and actually grow slightly in race dates. As has been mentioned before, we have been able to grow in PEI up 9 dates from 2005 and up 170 some dates in total dashes. We also have been able to grow about $1.1 million in purses from 2004 to 2010. And we have also seen a significant growth in the horses racing on Prince Edward Island. The numbers from Standardbred Canada there's over 1,100 horses that made a start. We're up 42% in 7 years in PEI. So it's put a tremendous amount of pressure on our purse pool. Elder Nicholson and Tom Clark and the folks who are involved with that do a tremendous job in trying to manage that for us. But it's put a lot of pressure because of the tremendous growth in horses over that period of time. We mentioned before that we are bucking the trend in Atlantic Canada, in the PEI in particular, and what we certainly want to take from this is that we've got a growth right across Atlantic Canada in total purses, and our goal has to be how do we sustain that growth. When we look from any provincial government as to why to be involved in the harness racing industry, we have challenges, certainly significant challenges in agriculture across Canada. And the horse business, particularly in Prince Edward Island, has a significant opportunity for growth. And we feel that with improved genetics, we've got the available land and labor, and we can expand the breeding of all segments of horses once we get the revenue opportunities flowing through the industry. What I really want to impart to you today is how to get to where we need to go. And how did it happen in PEI? Well, I can't tell you how to do it, but I can talk a little bit about how we did it. And what we did was, in 1999, the Harness Racing Industry Association of the province was formed. It brought together some diverse interests and diverse groups and diverse voices that have been going to government for years. And it brought them all around one table, and it's absolutely critical that the industry discuss and debate around one table inside a building where it's going to go. But outside that building, there's one plan and there's one voice. That's absolutely critical. In my opinion, you won't get anywhere without that. And another thing that we have been fortunate to do is find and develop friends in government. Not every person in PEI who comes in to be an MLA or cabinet minister is a fully appreciative or strong supporter of harness racing, but a lot of them have been developed that way. And it's because of people, again, as Minister Sheridan has mentioned in a recent meeting, like Elder Nicholson, Tom Clark, Blair Campbell, and Earl Smith at the head of the Industry Association, who provided him with a lot of strategic advice about where the industry should go, development in Summerside, support for that, and you know, we've been able to continue from government to government, minister to minister, because of that strong industry voice and support, continued support for harness racing from government to government, minister to minister. And so the message has to be that, you know, make sure that you get one message, get it to government from the bureaucratic to the political level, and send a consistent theme. And get the right messengers. When it seemed like a long time, but not too long ago time, Dave Thorburn was the first person hired when the Charlottetown Driving Park Entertainment Centre was conceived. Robert Kosniak came to us from Ontario Lottery and Gaming to head up the construction project, and the first person he hired was Dave as our first general manager. And there was a lot of planning sessions and from development and designs and all the things that had to go on. And certainly one of the things we had to do was a series of public meetings on Prince Edward Island, building permits, justification for what we're doing from the industry, explaining to the industry what the goals were of what we wanted to do in Charlottetown. And we were fortunate that we were able to have a number of people within the industry who devoted a lot of time to come to public meetings, make presentations on behalf of the industry. And that is absolutely critical. The industry has got to be its strongest voice for itself. And it's fine for people like myself who work in the bureaucracy and others to be supportive of things, but the industry has to stand up and speak for itself. And oversell. By that I mean, get your plan, one industry plan, get it communicated and developed from among your members. Communicate that to government and keep pushing, keep selling. Talk about opportunities, because we all are certainly looking for opportunities for economic development in government. That's what governments are all about. And we certainly want to make sure that we communicate the opportunities that are there, as we talked about with the development of better genetic horses from standard breeding business in Atlantic Canada, the opportunities that are there on a North American basis right now. We have a great opportunity to partner with Atlantic Lottery to develop new joint revenue opportunities. Atlantic Lottery is a strong, well-managed company. It's ours. It's owned by the 4 governments of Atlantic Canada. We've got a partnership that's developed from Red Shores, and we certainly feel that that partnership model, tweaked whichever way may be necessary for each province, is the way to go. We also feel we have the opportunity to improve the genetic quality of all Atlantic bred horses, and we desperately need infrastructure development in virtually all of our racetracks in Atlantic Canada. So when we talked about the plan for Atlantic racing, I feel we need to develop an opportunities working committee to sit down with Atlantic Lottery and discuss opportunities for the future growth of Atlantic harness racing. We have an opportunity, I feel, to discuss a pilot project for harness racing lottery product. This was one of the action items that came out of your organization, the Atlantic Harness Racing Development Council, and as an important component of this is the unique partnership that is available to us now between lottery and harness racing. In some places, lotteries and harness racing are seen as competitors. Here they're partners. And we are currently conducting a review of our tote system. We feel there's opportunities for some synergy within the tote business. We've got a good supplier with United Tote and been our partner with that for a number of years. But we're currently looking at new opportunities, new technologies that are going to make it easier to reach our wagering customers. As Dave and Tom mentioned, with Red Shores at Charlottetown Driving Park and Red Shores Summerside, these were built by the Atlantic Lottery Corporation in partnership with 3 levels of government. They do provide an integrated racing, gaming, and dining experience. These facilities have driven the expansion of PEI racing, and Red Shores at Charlottetown Driving Park has been profitable the last 2 years. And it is a unique model within Canada, and we feel it is transportable, that the model that we have, modified in some way if necessary, can be used in every province in Atlantic Canada. What the industry needs to do is get the government to do a request to Atlantic Lottery to look at that type of model, in my opinion. This is one of my favorite shots from the Gold Cup and Saucer. The interest in that brand, that event is tremendous. But if you think that what we can do on a population of 140,000 people, there's more people live in St. John than live in the whole province of Prince Edward Island. There's no reason why that type of an attendance, that type of an interest can't be driven. I know it's unique. I know it's the Kentucky of Canada. We're very proud to live and be from there. But there is opportunities to vastly expand into our key demographic areas in Atlantic Canada, the supply of live harness racing. As you know, we've had a major capital expansion at Charlottetown in 2004-2005. We also had the expansion of Summerside and Red Shores Summerside, which was a partner of the federal, provincial, municipal governments and the Atlantic Lottery Corporation. Structuring the partnership in that manner, joint partnerships between the construction of permanent stabling barns, ship-in facilities, the new grandstand and the associated amenities with that, gave a necessary justification at all levels of government. And we've seen growth at Summerside the same way we've seen growth at Charlottetown. We're up almost from $399,000 in purses in 2001 to $912,000 in purses in 2010. As you know, Summerside is a very historic facility, proud to be celebrating its 125th anniversary this year of racing. And it's a great property that's there now. And we from the property size of Summerside and the capital that was built there to the project in Charlottetown, which was different capital outlays, there's a model there that will fit at every racetrack in Atlantic Canada. As Tom mentioned, the HLT advisory study, when we look at the challenges in agriculture, I think every Department of Agriculture in Canada would be interested to learn that horse breeding is the second largest sector of the Ontario agricultural industry, and when everything is taken in, all the jobs associated. The Ontario Racing Commission, in their global number, tells us that there's almost 65,000 total jobs that are associated with Ontario. So our next step, develop a plan. We discussed the other day the need to get a plan similar to what Tom has outlined for you here today in every provincial industry association. Get everyone behind it, speak with one voice, and inform the right people. The industry, we're great at talking among ourselves. We do a very, very poor job overall of selling the industry. Sometimes we market well. We're very proud of what we've been able to do in marketing and different events. As I mentioned, everybody does some things well in best practices, but as an industry, we don't do a very good job of selling ourselves. I feel that with the model we have in Charlottetown and Summerside, PEI as a whole, we have a unique opportunity from the development of this partnership to move that to an Atlantic model. There's huge opportunities in all Atlantic provinces, and my message to you today is don't miss it. Get together, get one plan, get one voice, and work with your partners in government and Atlantic Lottery. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kent, and again, to have this model working so well, so close with Atlantic Lotto and Atlantic Lotto representing in the Atlantic region, we don't want to miss an opportunity, and hopefully we can move forward and get a nice similar model working for us. Take a couple minutes to refresh coffee. If anybody has any questions, we can, I guess, ask now. Yep, Dan.
Yeah, just to give you an example, if I could, Dan, of the significant changes, and I think, you know, sometimes we don't recognize, you know, we know the wager numbers, but when you look at the trend lines Canada-wide in live race dates, we've gone from 2,480, almost 2,500 dates in 2001, to just slightly over 1,900 last year. Okay, we're down 500 live race dates in Canada over a 9-year period. Biggest bulk of that, of course, unfortunately, is the changes in Quebec, who've gone from 460 in 2001 down to 16 last year. But when we talk about reduction in live race wager, we're also down 500 live dates in Canada. That is a factor, folks.
$67% decrease from 2010 over 2005 in wager. I would assume there's a big piece, but Quebec, when did they, Quebec?
Yeah, I know, I just actually looked at the numbers across Canada, and I think, and Kathy may be able to point me in the right direction, but I think Quebec went from around 90 million a year down to 19. Like, I think that was a change because of the lack of product and lack of availability. I believe they only run off HPI at this point. I don't know if they do have actual teletheaters with the tote system in or not. That was one of the major hits that the industry took. But even across the provinces, the last report back from CPMA was showing the only 4 provinces in Canada that show growth were the 4 Atlantic provinces. And I think that's a really, really positive thing for us, and it's something to be proud of that we are moving in that direction. You know, across the country, there are struggles. Everybody knows that the industry has its challenges, but it's great to see our region moving in the right direction. So.
Yeah, it's an entire experience package, and that, you know, again, there's only so much disposable income to go around, and there's a lot of competition online, restaurants, theaters, all that sort of stuff. So we've got to kind of do something a little unique to draw people in, and I think we have that on the island. Mm-hmm.
And I think if I could too, Dan, just mention one thing that I see. I think the folks in Ontario are very fortunate that there was a lot of foresight and leadership back when the whole slots at the racetrack program was being initiated, that there was a legislative allocation of funds, not a discretionary one. And because we see the challenges that are going on, I mean, we know there are some harness racing states now that we're expecting a certain level of purses for sire stakes over overnight purses, and it looks like those are going to be reduced in a couple of instances or threatened to be reduced. But, you know, Ontario, you really have to look back at the leadership of the folks that were involved at that time to legislatively commit of the percentage allocations, because that's gave them security that some other places just don't have. And I think that should be a message going forward for everyone.
Dan, could you just talk in the mic? The only reason being that we are streaming out, so the people online watching aren't catching what the questions are in that way.
When the gaming strategy was, recommendations were being done by Ron Lesperance in Nova Scotia, I was providing with some information from Standardbred Canada's site and from the USDA on slots, the addition of slots and gaming in the states and different states, and how the breakouts towards harness racing would go. And I see already some of those are being relooked in just a year from different stories on the Standardbred Canada site. So what you're saying really makes sense, Kent.
Mm-hmm. I had a question for Dave. Is it unique, I guess, across Canada? Are there other casinos that embrace racing like that, or racinos that have the racing on the floor, or is that kind of a unique thing to Red Shores?
It's limited. I can only go by the experience I've had. I haven't seen it when I was in Ontario, and I left Ontario 2004, and we did not have the monitors and betting stations and stuff on our gaming floors there. It just wasn't there. So we incorporated that at Charlottetown here a year after we opened, and it's had a positive impact both ways, both on our gaming floor revenues and on the harness racing revenues as well, right? Because we're trying to introduce new players to both sides, right? And that's why we kind of incorporated the promotional aspect as well, that any promotions we do are cross promotions. So it includes our harness racing folks, and it includes the gaming folks as well, to try to make sure everybody tries to get a piece of the pie and win whatever we're offering at that time, right?
Well, it's great to see. It's encouraging for sure to see a lottery company take over and embrace it like that. So, any other questions from the floor for this panel?
I was impressed with the $1 from the government generating $10. Can you give me some details about that? Is that a 2010 number? Is the $1 is the government grants? What is the $10?
The provincial government in Prince Edward Island contributes on a yearly basis in the vicinity of $3 million per year. And as I had made mention in my presentation, it's a little over $31 million that we returned in 2009 in gross domestic product within our province.
In gross domestic product. And the numbers were not as attractive in 2005 and 2006, is that correct? I noticed you had a loss, and it was publicized that you had a loss at Charlottetown. And the New Brunswick government, and particularly Jody Carr, the member at the time, used that to beat us over the head to not give us any money.
Well,
You did have a loss in 2005,
yeah,
2006.
if I understand you correctly, we might be talking two different things. During the early phases of the model that we have now in Prince Edward Island, Dave could speak to the revenue streams there, but our total economic impact on Prince Edward Island, our contribution as an industry, whether it be breeding or the racing aspect of it, is over $30 million as of our study, which was completed in 2010.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Just to touch on the revenues, originally we did lose money at Charlottetown, and that was based on the business model and business plan that was initiated based on studies and things for comparable sites in Ontario, for example. Some of the things that we didn't take in consideration or that weren't taken in consideration when we compared what potential revenues Charlottetown property could make compared to a similar size property in Ontario was that we have a VLT market that we compete against, which Ontario doesn't, right? And there was a larger population base, obviously, in Ontario to draw from than Charlottetown had. So there was an anticipated revenue from the slot machines that just obviously didn't happen. And that, you know, to be totally honest, that just didn't happen in Charlottetown. I worked also in Halifax Casino when they first opened up. Same mistake was made there. Same mistake was made in the New Brunswick Casino as well. We don't have the population base, and we've got other markets and other competition, the VL competition that doesn't happen in Ontario. You don't have the VLs in the bars that we do here, right? So that wasn't taken in consideration, and that's something that, as we move forward, we obviously know now, right? And, you know, Summerside, when we built that property and looked at the type of capital investment that we thought that property could sustain, we took that in consideration.
If I could, if you don't mind, just add a little bit more. I'd like to instill upon our sister provinces the confidence that your question was a very good one, but don't be put off. The model, any business that we've developed as we have here in Prince Edward Island, I think most businesses go through a period of development. Now we have a model that is much finer tuned than we had in 2005. And I can guarantee you that we as a Prince Edward Islander, we have a model that we're really excited about sharing. I can't speak for the folks at Red Shores, but in my dealings with them, we're really starting to progress in a significant manner. And any of those fears that maybe provincial governments might have had when they looked at our model 4 years ago, they're not there now, folks. We've kind of established a pattern here, and there's always growth pains, but we're ready to roll now.
Anything else? Well, thank you very much to the panelists, and we will take a couple minutes just to refresh coffee and have our wrap-up panel start very shortly.